Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to everybody here in the room, and also welcome to all the future YouTube viewers who are watching from at home on their couches. I'm kidding, of course. Nobody will be watching. Actually, I just asked. It's about 50 persons on average, but it is up to 500 those videos that are watched a lot. So I'm going to see if I can crack that record. Today's PhD lecture will be about how the reverse supply chain impacts the financial performance of original equipment manufacturers. And I'll be speaking at length about the reverse supply chain, but I would like to immediately define what an original equipment manufacturer is. If you see this image, there are 5 tiers in the supply chain: materials manufacturing, component fabrication, end product assembly, and then the customers. So the original equipment manufacturer is the type of manufacturer that has in-product assembly, in-house, as well as manufactures some of the components for the products, and the remaining components are then purchased from suppliers. And in addition, this type of firm purchases materials from suppliers for the components that the firm is manufacturing in-house. Here is an example of a product from an original equipment manufacturer. This is a booster pump from Grundfos, and the motors, the 4 black items on top of the product, is something that they purchase, as far as I know, from suppliers, and also the electrical components in the box up on the left, up on the right-hand side, while some of the metal components is something that is produced in-house. So this is an example of an original equipment manufacturer. Now, examples of companies that are not original equipment manufacturers are those that produce products that are not the result of an assembly process. For example, an oil refinery, or a bread factory, or a drug company that manufactures medicine. That's not original equipment manufacturers. The most important characteristics for this project is whether or not the product is the result of an assembly process or not. Here are other brands of some of the famous companies we have here in Denmark. And as you can see, Vestas and Oticon, they produce products that are very, very different in size. But they are still both original equipment manufacturers. So that tells us something about the vast array of companies within this group. Next up, I will discuss what a reverse supply chain is. Here you can see the firm's forward supply chain with the same columns as before: materials manufacturing, component fabrication, finished product assembly, and then marketing, and then the product goes to the market. That's the firm's forward supply chain. Here comes the reverse supply chain. The reverse supply chain consists of 5 interconnected processes. First, the firm reacquires the product in its used condition from customers. Core product, that's the way literature tends to, that's sort of the broader category of products that have left the finished goods inventory and are with distributors or with retailers or have been used by customers. That's the first step. Second step is to take back these products from customer locations. That's the reverse logistics step, where products are transported in the reverse direction with respect to the forward supply chain, and then they land at the facility of the firm where they are inspected and sorted. Some of the products are then sorted for recovery. These products are then recovered in the next step, and finally they're remarketed. It's also possible, in addition to remarketing these products, it's possible to use them internally. And I have a couple of examples later in the presentation. Together, these 2 supply chains form the closed loop supply chain. And the idea is that products first enter the closed loop supply chain through the forward supply chain, and then they make several cycles within the reverse supply chain. So this project is about how the firm can increase the operating profit, the bottom line profit, by using such a reverse supply chain. Now, just looking at the reverse supply chain like this, like 5 interconnected processes, it kind of looks like the reverse supply chain is, well, that's not too difficult, not too complicated, but a reverse supply chain can have a large degree of complexity. the reverse supply chain can conduct several functions for the firm, and they can conduct these functions for the firm at the same time. And here are 3 examples. Remanufacturing of core end products for resale and secondary market, that's an example of one function that the reverse supply chain can conduct. And disassembly of core materials for resale back to original suppliers is another. And then there is both of these first and second reverse supply chain function, they give the firm increased revenue. While the third one, refurbishing of core components for reuse as spare parts in maintenance programs of the installed base, that is something that gives the firm a cost saving, or certainly can give the firm a cost saving. The installed base is the products that are operating and running with their current customers. Now these reverse supply chain functions have 3 constituent elements, 3 defining elements. They all handle an item, end products, core materials, or core components. They all have a process, remanufacturing, disassembly, or refurbishing, and they all have a purpose, which is the right-hand side of the sentence. Some of these functions, as I mentioned, give the firm an increased revenue, the others reduce costs. So a firm can use its reverse supply chain for both parts of increasing its profits, both increasing revenue and reducing costs. Here is an example of a reverse supply chain that conducts several functions for the firm. To begin with, the firm reacquires products from the market. That's the arrow towards the left. And then they decide first whether they want to refurbish the whole product or whether this is not possible. That depends on the quality of the core product. Some products can be refurbished and they can then be either resold back to the primary market, for example, as a product that is priced lower than the firm's new virgin products, and that makes the firm makes the firm able to address a segment of the market that the firm may currently not address. And it's also possible to resell these refurbished products at a lower price to secondary markets in different geographies. For those products where it's not possible to refurbish the product as a whole, where that's unfeasible, then it may be possible to refurbish and reuse some of the components from these items, from the products. And they can then be reused either in the end product refurbishing, or they can be resold as spare parts into the firm's market. For those components where that's not possible, it may be possible to sell the components back to either the original supplier, who may be interested in purchasing that material so he can remelt it and sell it as virgin material, or perhaps to companies that where their whole business is handling used materials, like Stena Recycling, for example. And all components that cannot be either refurbished or used in refurbishing or resold, they then enter the waste stream. Now the value of the item decreases as we go upstream, because if a product is refurbished as a full product, then that product will retain the value that's in the original assembly process. However, a component that is being refurbished is of lower value because it's not already inside a product. And then the material will be of even lower quality, of even lower value. At the same time that the value of the item decreases as we go upstream, the costs of operating this reverse supply chain increases because there are more processes involved. So for any given company, at some point here on this x-axis, it becomes infeasible to use these to reuse or to use any of these functions. This is a practical example from Xerox's reverse supply chain, and this is a reverse supply chain with 4 functions. If we stick with the black arrows, they begin on top with suppliers that supply the firm's component inventory with components. These are then taken from the factories for making finished products, and these finished products are then put into the end product inventory. When a sales and service company then has sold a product, then they get that product from the end product inventory and ship it out to the customer. That's the forward supply chain. When a customer then is finished using the copy machine, then the firm takes back the copy machine, places it again at the end product inventory, and then ships them to a central returns and disposal facility. That's this one. So the firm there decides, are we able to refurbish the product as such? If that's the case, then we refurbish it and ship it back to the end product inventory. If that's not possible, then it may be possible to reuse some of the components. That's what number 2 refers to, back to the component inventory. And if that's not possible, then resell some of the materials back to original suppliers. So that's an example, a practical example of a reverse supply chain. So the next couple of slides will present the research questions that I have answered and also the methods used. This slide presents sort of a traditional and a more emergent literature stream within this area. The traditional way of looking at reverse product flows is by looking at them as a nuisance, something that's an irritation that comes back from the market, and what are we supposed to do with that? One article even calls it the unwanted stepchild of forward logistics. So it's really something that managers don't like to handle. And that's why a lot of research has focused on how do we reduce the costs of this reverse product flow. That's kind of the traditional literature stream. Then there is the business perspective literature stream that began about 10-15 years ago with the first publications. And this literature stream differs from the traditional literature stream by looking at reverse supply chains as potentially profitable business opportunities. So it's not something for which we just need to reduce the costs. We want to find out how can we make money from operating flows, from handling these reverse product flows. And it's this business perspective that's the theoretical foundation of this PhD project. Here is a definition of the gap in literature that this project contributes in filling. The first one is the very last sentence of a literature study conducted in 2013, and it says that we need to research how the reverse supply chain can become a profit center within the organization. This paper defines reverse logistics as this project defines the reverse supply chain. And the second one was an email written to me by the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Supply Chain Management, who says that the connection between reverse supply chain and financial outcome is something that's under-researched and relevant to research. So I've sort of deduced from these two statements and also other statements in other papers that the under-researched problem in literature is how the reverse supply chain can contribute to the financial performance of the firm. Yeah, so this is the basic relationship that this study is looking at. How the reverse supply chain, the physical, practical reverse supply chain processes can impact the financial performance of the firm. And by firm, I mean these original equipment manufacturers. I have asked two questions. How can the reverse supply chain contribute? And the result, well, the answer to this question is a set of ways, a set of channels through which the processes can increase the firm's financial performance. The second question asks then, if a firm pursues any of these ways, then what are the decisive factors for the size of the contribution that the reverse supply chain can make, and also whether this contribution is positive at all. Exploration, theory building, and theory testing and refinement, that's kind of the classic way that research works. And this project focuses primarily on theory building. Now, exploration has to do with if it's a field that is almost unknown, and the objective is then to find out, well, what are the relevant variables to research? What are the questions? What are the interesting problems? And the exploration phase is still ongoing, but the research is within the reverse supply chain field has been going on for a number of years now. So this project focuses on theory building, and theory building has to do with trying to identify or define the relationship between variables. And these are, of course, the two variables that this project is looking at. A paper from 1998 by John Wacker, published in the Journal of Operations Management, is one of the first and is one of the most used resources for finding out what are the best research methods depending on the research problem. And according to Wacker, who defines theory in this paper, theory as it is understood within the OM literature field, and he mentions this list of 6 different ways, 6 different methods for doing theory-building research. And in addition to these 6 ways that Wacker mentions is also the systematic literature review, which is in many places the beginning point for developing new theory. This project has used 3 different methods, mostly empirical case research, which is the second one from the bottom, also a systematic literature review, and also here and there some analytical conceptual research. So primarily this project has used empirical case research, which fits rather well with the object of understanding the relationship between these 2 constructs. Here's a quote from Foss et al. 2002. Case research has been one of the most powerful research methods, particularly in the development of new theory. That's the first sentence of his paper from 2002, and it's a very well-cited paper. I once tried to print that paper, and it was as if the whole printer went out of paper, because with this, the publisher of the papers, the publisher of the journal where this paper was published, they have all the cites in the end of the paper. So I've also been printing out all the cites, and because this paper is so well cited, it means I had to use like a whole stack of paper. Yeah. All right. The next number of slides will present the results of this thesis and one particular element of discussion. The first research question was, how can the reverse supply chain contribute to the financial performance of the firm? And I found 3 different ways. It can help the firm increase revenue directly through the processes of the reverse supply chain. It can increase the revenue stemming from virgin product sales, enabled by the reverse supply chain, and it can reduce the costs of the firm's forward operations. The blue square refers to what I will be discussing immediately next. So beginning with the increased revenue directly through the reverse supply chain. Now this figure has the same 4 columns as the initial figure where I defined the original equipment manufacturer. So kind of the middle part of that figure is just a copy from that one. So you have a number of different actors: direct competitors and related manufacturers, independent recovery firms, independent recyclers, and component suppliers. These actors are customers of items that the firm can produce through its reverse supply chain. So imagine that the firm takes back used products. The question is then, if we want to sell these items, what are we going to do with them? So there are 10 arrows here. 5 arrows have a code with something with A, and 5 have a code with B something. The 5 A arrows refer to a situation where the firm takes back a used product and then sells either the product or components or materials without recovering anything. The B arrows have to do with reselling something that the firm has recovered, either the end product or a component. So if we take B1, 2, 3, and 4, that has to do with either refurbishing either complete products or components and then reselling them either to the primary market or to secondary markets. B5 on top over there has to do with recovering components and then reselling these components either to direct competitors who are able to use these components or to related manufacturers, which are here defined as manufacturers that produce products where this particular component is also used. But this could be a completely different product that they are making. The A arrows have to do with selling off items that have not been recovered, either, for example, to independent recovery firms, or to original supplier, or to material suppliers. Yeah. So these are the ways I have found that the firm can increase their revenue directly through the reverse supply chain. Next up is how the firm can increase its revenue from virgin product sales. Yeah, some of you might be familiar with the generic strategies by Michael Porter. Probably still the most used and set of generic strategies available. Two of his strategies are differentiation and cost leadership. Cost leadership means that the firm wants to sell products by offering the product with the lowest price. Differentiation means that the firm offers a product that's not the cheapest, but is differentiated in some way other than lowest costs. Typically something with highest quality or fastest speed or on-time delivery, some other variable. Okay, so I found 9 different ways that the reverse supply chain can contribute to these two generic strategies. 3 ways of how the reverse supply chain can contribute to differentiation, and 6 ways of how the firm can contribute to cost leadership. The top 2 ones have to do with increasing the value of the product offering, either directly to customers or to wholesalers and retailers, players in the firm's distribution chain. And the third one is to increase the ability to innovate by learning from the reverse product streams. The 6 ways that enable the firm to compete better using the cost leadership strategy is about, well, let's take the first one, lower the firm's cost of materials purchasing. That if the firm then reduces the costs of their products, because they're able to do this, then that increases their ability to compete with this strategy. They can take back a product, refurbish it, and then resell it as a lower cost product. That's the second one. They can reuse spare parts and then lower their costs of spare parts and then again reduce their prices. The fourth one is they can provide the basis for higher discounts by telling a customer of a new virgin product, if I can take the old product back, I'm going to give you let's say a 10% discount. Customers may be unwilling to pay for a new version of the product, and instead the firm says, okay, so we cannot sell you a new virgin product. Instead, we will offer to take back your original product, refurbish it, and then you pay us for the service. Then we retain the customer in our pool of customers. And one other example is to, well, the last one is to consolidate all the scrap that the firm has and then ship it off to the scrapyard that charges the lowest fee, or maybe even wants to pay the firm for their scrap. So that's the second one. The third one is how can the reverse supply chain reduce the costs of the firm's forward operation? And most of these ways are captured by this slide that have to do with replacing the flow in the black arrows by using the flow through the blue arrows. That's the essence of this slide. So if we take the right-hand side, there the firm directly reuses an end product, maybe takes a product back and maybe repackage that product and put it into the finished goods inventory. That, if the firm does that, then it means that the firm will avoid all the costs upstream. The same with the other ones. It's just the only difference is that the cost saving will not be as high because we are going more upstream in the supply chain. The most value is with the smaller circles. That's usually the case with anything that is in this area. I have a slide about the circular economy in the very end, and they also talk about the small circles. I'll get back to that. Here is an example of how a firm can reduce its costs. Example, the Volkswagen Group, they remanufacture a fraction of their automobile parts, and then they reuse that in the service of their installed base of cars. And that way they replace the purchasing of materials and the internal manufacturing of an equivalent amount of virgin products. So anybody who has had a Volkswagen or a Skoda or a Seat for a service, you might have some of these remanufactured parts. I'm driving a Skoda myself, so I'm allowed to make that statement. Second question, what are the decisive factors for the size of the reverse supply chain's financial contribution? So now we imagine that, that the firm is implementing some of these ways that they can increase their bottom line profit with. So now the question emerges, what are the factors that are decisive for whether that is a smart thing to do or not? Now, the financial factors depend quite a lot on what reverse supply chain function we're talking about, because there is a large difference between taking back an end product, refurbishing that end product, and then reselling that end product. That's the one function, and then on the other hand, another function that takes back a product, disassembles it, and sells off the materials. There's a big difference between what the decisive factors are. So I've chosen, before I began this study, a set of reverse supply chain functions for which I wanted to identify these decisive factors. And that's the top three here: recovery and reuse of complete end products, recovery and reuse of components, and then direct reuse of packaging materials. And then I also studied more broadly the factors that impact all the revenue-generating reverse supply chain functions. Now, I did a case study with a firm that sells measurement equipment, and this is the reverse supply chain function that I studied the decisive factors for. The firm takes back the product from the market, recovers that product, and then resells it again. And this could be either more price-sensitive market segments of their current markets or to new geographies, Eastern Europe, Turkey, for example. Yeah, so this is the case where we looked at. Specifically, this case takes back a product from the UK, refurbishes it in Denmark, and then resells it again in Southern Europe, and we chose Italy. This is not the product of this particular firm. I just Googled something that looks like it. This is from, some of you might see that this is Konica Minolta, but that's not the case firm. But it's a product that looks pretty much like that. Sort of the same size, sort of the same technology. And this is what I found out about the most important factors. What I did was I had a lot of interviews with the firm to try to find out what are the factors that impact the profitability of operating this reverse supply chain function. And then I made a model in Excel that calculates the profit. And all these factors that you see down here, they are variables in that Excel sheet. And then I did a sensitivity analysis. I increased all of these factors one by one with 20%. And then I looked at the impact that had on the profitability. Minus and plus here refers to whether the increase in that particular variable will increase the profit or decrease the profit. And the column, the diagram here then shows the absolute change in the profit if the variable on the x-axis is increased by 20%. So this tells us something about which factors have a large influence on the profitability of operating this reverse supply chain functions and which have a low impact. So it appears that the sales price of the recovered product has the largest impact, and the other functions that have large impacts is the sale of the service of the product for servicing that product once it has been sold. The cost of acquiring that product, that's the third one, also has an impact. And then the fourth one, that's an interesting one. Once a customer has purchased a recovered product, then the firm will get to know that product. They will train their employees in using that product, and they will readjust their procedures so the firm will know how to use this product. When the customer firm then grows, the customer firm will most likely need additional of these measurement equipment products. And that gives the firm, so if the firm first sells the recovered product, then the probability of selling more products to the same customer increases quite a bit. And the value of that increase is the fourth factor. The cannibalization costs means that if a firm sells a recovered product to a customer, then let's say they do that 10 or 20 times, some of these customers might have purchased a virgin product, but they don't do that now. They purchase the recovered product. So the firm loses the profit from selling the virgin product. And that's the cannibalization costs. And then there is the cost of the salesman making the sale, logistics, inspecting, and the very last one is reverse logistics. Now, one interesting thing about this chart is that when we look at prior research about this area, then subjects such as reverse transportation, reverse network design, inventory policies for core and recovered products, they've been researched quite a lot. And those are all subjects within reverse logistics. And that's the one furthest to the right. So this is the study of one case, but it does quite strongly suggest that if we want to research factors that have a high impact on profitability, then we should redirect at least some of the attention from reverse logistics subjects to some of these other factors. So those were the factors that affect recovery and reuse of complete end products. Next one is recovery and reuse of components. And I didn't make a slide about it, but this is a company that takes back a particular component for their product, and then they insert it in they recover it and insert it in their product when they have a situation where they have, well, prior to this time, sold a product to a customer, and then the customer finds out that there's something defect with that particular component. Then they take back the product, repair it, and then they use the recovered product to insert it into that product in the repair process. Then they save the cost of an equivalent virgin item. And this is the same analysis as before. The most important factor is the avoided cost of purchasing that virgin component. And the second most important factor is all the costs involved with the recovery process, including the components needed, the subcomponents needed to do the recovery. Yeah, reverse logistics is more important now. It has moved up a couple of places. The third one was direct reuse of packaging materials, and these are the specific packaging materials that I was investigating: styrofoam boxes and cooling elements. And same analysis as before, absolute change in profit, and the most important factors here are then the avoided cost of purchasing virgin packaging materials, and then the reverse logistics of taking back all these boxes. So here reverse logistics is the second most important factor. Then I did a broad study of factors implementing all revenue generating functions. This is a slide that I've already shown. These are the 10 ways that a firm can increase its revenue directly through the reverse supply chain. I've added two, so those are the same ones as you see the 10 top ones here, 5 with an A and 5 with a B. And I've added 2 with a C that have to do with virgin product sales. And I studied 8 case firms for this particular paper. And these 8 case firms are all OEMs, and they meet all the requirements of the types of firms that I'm looking at in this PhD project. And so what the right-hand side of that figure shows, that three-eyed monster over here on the right-hand side, it shows us the pattern, the industrial utilization of these 12 revenue streams. So it appears that A1 to A5 are almost not used. B1 to B4, they have a pattern of either everything is used or nothing is used. And then the final 3 ones, there nothing is used except for C1 that all these case firms use. So I did a whole lot of interviews with these firms, and through this process we find out what are the factors explaining this pattern. And these 7 factors are the characteristics of the firm that is most likely to utilize some of these 12 revenue streams. The firm has easy access to core products and a large reverse flow, a high value gap between core and recovered products, which means that they pay a very little price for reacquiring a core product, and the value of after recovery is pretty high. They have a low degree of product and component customization, because it's difficult to sell a product that's customized for one customer, then recover it and resell it again to a different customer. The fourth one, high virgin product manufacturing costs compared to recovery costs. If these virgin product manufacturing costs are very low, then it's seldom feasible to begin the recovery process. It's easier for the firm just to turn up the volume of virgin products. Yeah, core products with small physical dimensions and low weight, and number 6, a low risk of brand value erosion. This is the case if independent recovery firms are to recover the firm's products with lower quality requirement than the OEM, then the customers of those products might associate the bad quality of that product with the OEM rather than the independent recovery firm. So if that risk is high, then the firm will not sell initially to independent recovery firm. And the 7th one, customers that value reverse supply chain enabled services will be more likely to utilize these streams. All right, 10 minutes left. I'm going to skip this one. Contributions to theory and practice, ladies and gentlemen. All right, these contributions to theory. The first bracket here tells us something about, is what I mentioned before on the first slide with the columns, that extant literature looks a lot on these 3 subjects of network design, vehicle routings, inventory policies, while this study has found that customers' willingness to pay, the profits from servicing the customer once sold, the acquisition costs, and the value of the increased probability of selling additional products, that's at least more important in the case study that I did. That's a contribution. The second box over there is that the reverse supply chain has a number of derivative effects. When a company takes back a product and then recovers that product, resells it again, then the direct costs are the cost of acquiring the product, all the processes, and then the direct income is what the firm receives as a sales price from selling that product. But that's not the whole story. What this project also shows us is that there are a number of derivative financial effects. And that includes some of these over here, additional increased probability of sales, service profits, and so on. Now, the second box in the middle there on the right-hand side, the reverse supply chain can contribute to the firm's bottom line in numerous ways simultaneously. I'm here referring to the reverse supply chain functions, and that the firm can conduct several of these at the same time. That's not something that I found out, but I have added to the understanding of this subject by defining the reverse supply chain concept and by illustrating how these can be utilized simultaneously. And then what are the literature streams that this project extends or adds to? That's first and foremost the business perspective literature stream within the reverse supply chain field, and then also theory on remarketing. This project has increased the number of potential outlets for products that the reverse supply chain processes, and same almost for disposition strategy choice. There are papers that describe what are the right choices to make, and this project has increased the number of potential channels that such a recovered product can take. And additionally, the project has added to theory about when it is a feasible option to invest in the reverse supply chain. Yeah. This is a figure that is on the website of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation was founded in 2010, and the mission of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is to promote a transition to the circular economy. Now, the linear economy is, I believe they call it make, take, and waste, something like that. Linear economy. Things come up from the ground, from the ocean, from a quarry, from a mine, from a cornfield, and then they end up either being burned or trashed. The linear economy. The circular economy, on the other hand, it looks a little bit like this. Well, it does look like this, where there are two types of products: the products that come from the natural world and the products that are more technical in nature. And what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is then suggesting is that instead of being incinerated or trashed, all these resources are reused somehow. And these are the two dots where this project has contributed. I've read a study that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has done about Denmark. They've did a case study about Denmark. I'll say that, talk a bit about that in a moment. And they have, actually let me wait with that one. I have another slide. Okay, so we'll get back to this concept of the circular economy in just a moment. Contributions to practice. So there are three types of actors to which this project has contributed. Directly to manufacturers, to education, and then to policymakers and society at large. To manufacturers, well, if a company finds itself in a position where they think, should we or should we not utilize the value of our reverse product flows, then this project, and particularly the answer to research question 1, gives the company a number of options. So they need to make a decision. Which of these options should we utilize? That's what this diamond represents. And research question 2 asks what are the decisive factors for the size of the profit contribution that the reverse supply chain can make. So these could function as decision variables. What should the firm be looking at when they make that decision? And once they've made a decision, then bada bing, they have the reverse supply chain that squeezes out the maximum amount of profit from their reverse product flows. This is the result of a paper conducted by 2 students. One of them happens to be in this room. Rasmus, sitting right over there. Hi, Rasmus. You're very welcome. Rasmus and one of our second semester students at the DTU Diplom, where I work, manufacturing engineers, they used the framework built from the findings of this project, and they found that for the company where they did this study, 3 reverse supply chain functions would be profitable. A1 to A5, B1 to B5, and C1 and C2, those are the ones I discussed before. And then D refers to all the cost reduction opportunities. E1 is a reverse supply chain function that the students identified. So I've swiftly included that in my framework as well. So 3 are profitable based on their calculations. Another 7 or 8 are worth considering, and then there are number ones that the company could say immediately, this would not be feasible for us. And it's possible for manufacturers to make such a plot like this one, and then decide, well, what are the right functions for our reverse supply chain. To education, this is another slide from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. This is then from the case study that Ellen MacArthur Foundation made about Denmark. So they have found that there is a huge potential in the Danish economy for the circular economy. One of these 10 opportunities is what they call, is located in the machinery sector of the industry. And this sector is what comes closest to the types of firms that I'm examining in my project. And they come to some of the same conclusions, but on a more overall level. This is a part from their study about Denmark, from their executive summary, where they talk about machinery, and they are telling us here that the key barriers for implementing the circular economy, which they here mean remanufacturing, I would just call it using a reverse supply chain. The key barriers is lack of capabilities and skills and imperfect information. So the antidote to these key barriers is education. So what we should do in the future, I strongly suggest that, and I'm working on it already, is to design to begin with a course for our students in Ballerup, where they learn how to find out what are the most profitable reverse supply chains for a company to operate, and how should they then implement it. Yeah, contributions to policymakers. Here are a couple of important points that I found out from my project. If we start with the top one, reverse product flows are uncertain in terms of quality of the core products and in terms of volume. It's very difficult to forecast. Uncertainty means difficult to standardize. Difficult to standardize means difficult to automate. In other words, there will be, everything else being equal, a larger amount of manual labor involved in reverse supply chains than with forward supply chains, where everything can be just so and so. That means jobs. The second line, Danish manufacturers usually sell the Mercedes in their markets. That's certainly the case with the 8 companies that I have studied. So recovering and reselling a product opens the Skoda segments of all the markets that these firms are addressing. If, for example, I'm the customer of a Skoda, but prior to getting that Skoda, I was thinking, quite much about whether I should get a used Mercedes. We chose the Skoda. But I was thinking about that, and that might be the case, and that is the case for a lot of these products as well, that are not cars. And if these Danish manufacturers suddenly get access to the Skoda segments of the markets, that means a whole lot of growth. So an important message for policymakers is there is jobs and growth inherent in reverse supply chain processes. Now, the Danish government, 2 ministries, the Miljø- og Fødevareministeriet and Erhvervs- and what does it say, Vækstministeriet, they have established an advisory board that will advise the government about how to support the transition to a circular economy. They are delivering a report in June to the government. So we'll see whether that will be implemented or whether it will be placed in a syltekrukke. I'm not sure how to say that in English. A jar with where stuff is for a long time. And now I've been spamming all of these people involved with the advisory board with a lot of my material. And for one of the persons who was in the advisory board, he is the CEO of a reuse company. He asked me a couple of questions, and I wrote him like a 4-page, it's called notate in the public sector. And he told me, oh, thank you, Samuel, that increases my understanding quite a bit. So that's a policymaker contribution. And also on Thursday last week, I attended a conference at Dansk Industri, which was hosted by this advisory board, and they were asking for qualified opinions about the tentative suggestions that they have for their report. So together with a lot of people from manufacturing companies, from financing institutions, from foundations, from all kinds of organizations, we were asked to qualify these recommendations. So they set us in rooms about this size with a flat floor, sitting around small tables, and then they had their suggestions, and we were then supposed to look critically at these suggestions. And I don't think they had very much that addressed what my project is addressing. So I made sure that I wrote on all the planks and all the pieces of paper to make sure that they got all my suggestions. I think they have them now. Some of them know my name now. Oh, it's you. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thanks.